All right, on today's video, I want to cover what I look for in a string manufacturer. There's a lot of string manufacturers out there. There's a lot of good string manufacturers out there. However, there's only really two brands that I'll use their strings, and I'll tell you why I choose those strings and what brings me back to them. The set that I'm going to talk about mostly today is Unbound Archery's strings. Nick over at Unbound has been a good friend of mine for a long time, even before he built strings. And I had been using Catfish for a long time. Nick and I got together this year when I picked up my Omnia, and I told him that I wanted to give an honest review of his strings and picked up a set of his strings. He's using the Bloodline VEC 99 material, which is a great material. Nick educated me on that. So if you guys want info on why that material is superior to other materials, I encourage you to reach out to Nick and ask him questions. And he'll be able to inform you more about the material because he uses it every single day. I just install them on the bows. Now, one thing that I really look for in a string is a tight twist, which is manufacturer by manufacturer. And another thing that I look for in a string is I don't want it to be moving all the time. I don't want to have to put my bow back into spec every few months. And that Bloodline material, Nick assured me that after a couple, he said 15 shots. I'm going to go with the benefit of the doubt and say 50 to 100 shots. That string isn't going to move very much past that. Now, I've ran about 500 shots through these strings from Unbound Archery already, and they haven't moved at all past the initial 15 when they were settling in the tracks. Another thing that I really like that Nick does is his center serving is super tight. A lot of other custom string manufacturers, when you tie your knock sets and your D-loop in, and if you end up having to cut them off and move them to a different spot, you'll see that the serving will separate a little bit because the serving isn't necessarily as tight as you could get it. Nick does a really good job of making sure that the center serving is super tight, and the knock fit is incredible from the factory. Most other strings, I have to cut the serving off, reserve the center serve so that it's as tight as I want, and so that I get the proper knock fit. Now, Catfish Customs, which is the strings that I was using prior, does a great job as well and also uses Bloodline VEC 99 as well as BCY X99. However, I think that Nick's quality, being that he's a one-man show, comes out a lot more consistent. Mike over at Catfish is also a one-man show, and his quality is up there. But I think Nick's attention to detail, just knowing Nick as a person, his attention to detail is some of the best that I've ever seen, and everything comes out perfect and looks great. It shoots great. It tuned wonderful. And with Nick's VEC 99 strings versus Catfish's VEC 99 strings, with the same amount of strands in the string, I actually picked up 3 feet per second using Nick's strings from Unbound Archery over my Catfish strings. Now, I'm not going to say that one string manufacturer is far superior than the other, but I will be saying that this year I'm going to run the Unbound strings. Next year I'm going to run the Unbound strings. And from here on out, I'm going to be installing Unbound strings on my customers' bows. Now, again, I'm not one to down on another person's product. Mike over at Catfish does a wonderful job. He does excellent work, and he builds a great string. However, for what I'm looking for my customers, I think this is going to be the ticket. The only way that I'm going to be running a Catfish set is if it's a color that Nick doesn't have and Mike does have. Now, another thing that I want to say about Nick over at Unbound is if you guys ever have any questions, Nick is open to answering your questions and helping you out. So of course, reach out to Nick if you have any questions as far as his string material goes, or if you're having troubles tuning your bow. I'm sure Nick would be more than happy to help you out with that. Nick has been around the industry for a long time. He hasn't been making strings for 20 years like some of these other companies, but I'll tell you what, the quality that he's putting out is incredible, and I will post some still shots here at the end of the video of my strings. So overall, I'm going to be shooting the Unbound strings this year, and I give them a 10 out of 10 on my review. They're a phenomenal string. Thanks.